This institution was so racist. The American Confederacy used it to write papers about how blacks were inferior than whites in America. I can bet you $500 you have never heard of this place before. These motherfuckers literally still keep in prison nearly a million stolen artifacts, field notes, colonial photographs, and other stolen indigenous stuff. Literally gatekeeping power over indigenous history. This is the Royal Anthropological Institute of London. Yeah, welcome to Whitewashing 101. In the 19th century, the British Empire was expanding rapidly, trying to colonize the whole world. And to justify this harm they were doing to indigenous societies, those pale skins needed some moral shielding to kind of like reduce the guilt or something. So one of them, called Kipling or something, I don't really care for his name, wrote this essay called The White Man's Burden, which had this toxic belief that whites were more superior and they had this duty to, quote unquote, civilize the primitive societies. Motherfucker. And they had this duty to, quote unquote, civilize what they called primitive societies. And it was the work of the smart guys, the academic elite, to kind of make this blatant racism into a hard, a hard, objective, unquestionable science. So in 1871, organizations, the Pro-Slavery Anthropological Society of London and the Pro-Eugenics Anthropological Society of London merged to form what is now the Royal Anthropological Institute. Motherfucker. This science, which was in essence just pure racism at its most ripe age, had the goal of mapping out the whole human evolution and creating like this societal ladder that can be used to classify everybody. This institution was so racist. The American Confederacy used it to write papers about how blacks were inferior than whites in America. And it was also the curriculum that colonizers used to study indigenous population so that they can have power that they will need to like tax, control, and divide them more effectively. One of these pieces of shit literally writes in this book I'm reading about the Bantu in Kenya, saying that he realized like very early on that to administer these people, you need to actually read, you need to actually like really study them, and that effective colonization and domination can only be achieved intelligently by close inquiry into how these guys were organized and what were their religious beliefs. All the bull. Fast forward to today, and you might think like such an institute with like this much indigenous blood in their hands will be like dismantled, right? But now, in the public, the IRA, which still exists, but talks a lot about like decolonial anthropology and opening up their archives. But the core structure of these legacy institutions is still there, like propping white supremacy like it has never done before. The RAA still treats Western academia as the quote-unquote intellectual center of the world, maintaining this Eurocentric monopoly on what can be considered legitimate anthropology. These motherfuckers literally still keep in prison nearly a million stolen artifacts, field notes, colonial photographs, and other stolen indigenous stuff. Literally gatekeeping power over indigenous history. They get to decide who accesses it, who frames it, and what it is framed as, and who tells these stories. Like the white man's burden did not change at all. It just took off the colonial uniform and put on an academic one. That's why you should never, I repeat, never trust Western academic institutions. All of them are there's something wrong with fundamentally. Well, welcome to my TED Talk, I guess.